I have started the recording, so I am recording these sessions just for your information. And that I will hopefully most of the time transfer the recordings, get them posted back in Blackboard in the video recording section by that evening, usually in the evening. Although yesterday's recordings, I have not moved them yet. It was a busy day, and then it was a busy evening, and I actually think I was answering emails past midnight last night. That I was also working on some other stuff. So those normally I do them at home because of the internet connection here at the college. Downloading and uploading videos doesn't work real well here at the college. That sometimes it gets disconnected and it's sluggish and etc. So the distance education coordinator's recommendation always to me is do it from home when I write about the connection. And it's might not be so much the connection speed as it may be the firewall and stuff getting in the way also, causing problems on it. So I normally do those at home. So hopefully this evening, if I don't have I've got some other stuff to do, but if I don't have any critical things that get in my way, stopping me from doing stuff, I can upload them, because I download them from Blackboard, upload them to YouTube, and then put the link to YouTube in your class in the video recording part. I've had students that watch the videos say that they like watching them later again. I have students that missed the sessions also like attending them. And then sometimes there in the list, there's also recordings that are literally recordings that I've added out there that I have done in the past or even more current. So those are all there. So those will be there. And like I say, my intention is to do them that evening. But sometimes that gets in the way. I didn't leave the school till past 6 o'clock yesterday. And then I did some more from home, and then I was dealing with some other stuff. And I had an hour meeting in the midst of that to attend. Actually, I had a 2-hour meeting that I didn't attend, a training that I'd like to get that one done later today or tonight, do the recording on it, which I can do in that one. And I knew when I signed up for it that there'll be sessions I will miss because it runs for the next 6 weeks. It's on Penn Plus. CompTIA exam on the Train the Trainer series. They've got to teach us some about it and how to teach it. I'm hoping to learn some about it. Is my big part in it. And then to take the test after that. So that's where that will pursue from. And I just thought about something. I need to look at the calendar for next week real quick. Doesn't hit this group, but I think, yes, I do. I may have a conflict on myself with the group, with the morning group next week. Because I've got a Linux Plus beta test that I'm taking Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock. But that doesn't affect y'all because y'all will be on Monday. So I knew that was mixed in there somewhere. So we will proceed on that. This is 2451. It is Introduction to Networking. It will be a lot of stuff you're going to learn in the class in here. A lot of it will be new stuff. Even if you think you've been playing with networking for a number of years, you're going to get a lot more theory and stuff through the course. There is some hands-on in it also, which some of you already bumped into, that have started on chapter 2, that gets into. So when we get to chapter 3, we're going to start hitting much more heavily on stuff. Chapter 1 was a light overview of what networking is and some other things. So, and then chapter 2 actually puts you on the Cisco switches and shows you how to do a basic configuration on them to set up a basic network. And it's using Packet Tracer. The idea there is not so much for you to get the commands learned and know exactly what the commands are at this point. You need to pick up on them, but the more part of the chapter is to give you some hands-on experience there into them. We will be touching back on those at different times through the course in relation to some different things you're learning. But you'll be using Packet Tracer to do that. Now, that's the reason I have put you in that introduction to Packet Tracer class, is it goes through and shows you how to do stuff in Packet Tracer, and not just at the basic level like you're going to do more in this class, but shows you the full capabilities of the Packet Tracer program. Well, let me change that. Shows you what the full capabilities were of the Packet Tracer program, and actually it's got some more stuff to it now than it did then, because that's based on version 7. I also have a video out there of where I go through demonstrating Packet Tracer, and I think actually what I show you in there follows to a degree along with what they have you doing in the chapter. Although I recorded it a couple of years ago and on the previous version of the book and of Packet Tracer. So again, they're on version 7 on those things showing you. However, for most of what you're doing in Packet Tracer, I think we do have an assignment or two later on that you'll touch the new feature on it, which is it's got a physical view that's gotten to be a good physical view so that you can actually see the cables hanging and everything else when you're hooking stuff together, instead of it just being a logical map. But here at the beginning, you're going to be doing it just the way it's always been done up through version 7. So we'll see some of that physical later. In this course, we're not going to get into the IoT stuff that they show you in that Introduction to Packet Tracer course, but I want you to see what can be done with Packet Tracer now. And a lot of that stuff came on with version 7, I think it was, may have been a little on 6, but particularly 7 that they threw the IoT stuff in about 4 years ago, if I remember right. And so you can do all kinds of IoT things in there, setting up and playing with. So it's a really neat simulation program. It is a simulator, but everything in there essentially works just like when you're putting in the configs. It's working just like you were really on the real equipment, except it will let you cheat at times. Instead of, in your first assignment, it makes you do it just like you do on real equipment. You've got to connect from a PC and then work through a terminal emulator on the PC to be able to get into the switch. And I'll keep saying router by mistake part of the time, because they used to do router before they did switch. Now they're doing switches before routers. But you got to go through that to get into it, because routers and switches have no screens attached to them or keyboards attached to them. So you got to have a way to get into them and do stuff in them. So you're going to go through a terminal emulator to get into there and do it, and you're going to use a rollover cable or a console cable, you'll see both names on it, to make the connection. And that's the only thing goes across between that connection. It doesn't let you actually get out there onto the internet or anything else. You're just getting into the configuration for it from that part of the connection. Now, they'll also have you put in a regular twisted pair cable across that will let you then do whatever onto the network, and if it was connected to the internet, get out onto the internet. But when we get on past this chapter, you'll discover that in Packet Tracer, you can actually just click on the router or the switch, unless they lock it like they did in the first assignment, and that it just opens up right there for you in a pop-up box, and you get to make the changes and do the stuff. But it looks just like when you went through the terminal emulator, and it looks just like if you were doing it on real equipment and going through a terminal emulator like Putty Tail or something else. Putty Tail is what we use here at school to go in, and there's some others out there, that the appearance is the same. And hopefully 1 week I can hook up a router or switch onto the machine of whichever one I'm working on to do the class, and show you where the stuff you're seeing looks exactly the same in Packet Tracer and if you were on real machines. So when you go out and you work on real machines, you're going to see the same things. But it is a simulator, so there are a few commands that won't work, but for y'all's purposes at this point, that doesn't make any difference. Everything you're doing in this course will. Those of you that are going through the Cisco curriculum, we will discover in the third final course that there are a few things that may not work for us. Okay? So that's where we're going to go from. And I'm going to do a demo in just a minute for you on Packet Tracer. Chapter 1 is giving you a real quick overview of networking and terms. I'm not going to go into that right in here today. Yesterday, this session ran an hour and 20 minutes, and I didn't even touch that. I'm going to do a separate recording as my intention later today, and that I'll post out there, and then y'all can watch that and see what I tell you about on that stuff. But it's they're giving you some basic definitions through the chapter, and a little bit on some descriptions of what a network is, like we'll be working on. Now, a couple of other things to real quick cover. One, to get credit for having attended the Collaborate session, you have to participate in it. Now, what that means is you've got to post some comments or questions in there in the chat box, or use the live microphone and ask things, so that this is not just a one-way presentation from me, which would be like the recording that I'm going to do for you later today, but this is supposed to be an engagement activity, which is what the discussions are also. And by you doing that, that's why you get out of having to do the discussions, because I know there's a few of you in here probably purely doing this to not do the discussion, because I understand discussions are not real popular, but they are a requirement by the school and by our accrediting agency that we have to have some type of engagement activities. In my case, I'm giving you a choice of 2 to do, and that you can do in any given week, whichever one you want to do. So you don't have to stay with one or the other all semesters. In fact, you're doing live Collaborate today doesn't mean you have to be live Collaborate every week. As a matter of fact, there will probably be 1 week in March that we won't have a live Collaborate, and you will have to do a discussion. Because I'm supposed to go to a 2 conferences actually, all week up in North Carolina, and that those things on that Monday, I will be driving up there, and they'll take 7 hours or something to get there. So it's a full day right there for me in the drive. And so I probably won't have sessions that Monday. And then that Tuesday, we got a Cisco conference that'll run from probably about 8 to 5. And then actually that night, I'll probably go out to dinner with some of the ones in the academy over us. Usually do, and we end up talking more about Cisco stuff. So it's a working dinner. Then Wednesday and Thursday is a computer instructors conference. Actually, it runs on Friday too, but Wednesday and Thursday it runs a full day from like 8 to 5. And on Wednesday, usually they have a banquet for us, and that we go out for that dinner that night somewhere that they feed us nicely and take care of us there. And I end up talking more with people about stuff on computers also. So it's a working one for me there too, although it's some socializing and stuff also involved there. And it's supposed to be a relaxing thing to it. And then Friday, they have stuff for Friday morning till lunchtime. And then I've got to drive back from there, so that means that's more than a full day there, because I've already told you to drive up there to, this time it's in Greensboro area, that is going to take me somewhere 7-8 hours or so to get there. Maybe a little less. It just depends on how traffic is and everything else at that time. I have gone to that conference up there, actually in the area at school where I'm going to this time, a few years ago, and got there. And as I got on closer there, I ran into a snowstorm and drove through the snow for the last few hours of it, and an icy road, and car was fully covered in snow the next morning. So I never do know when it gets to March, when I'm going across western North Carolina, what the weather could be. So that week probably won't. I will let you know then. And there could be some other times that will change, just like this week, on the day that we're having the sessions on. At this point, I don't know of any, but they usually do pop up some things or something or another. Because one thing I know I do have to do that actually doesn't collide with these. It's in mid-February and it's on Wednesday. So starting next week will be on Mondays at this time. So have y'all got any questions on all of that? And then I've tried to give y'all plenty of stuff there in Blackboard. I am going to add another assignment in there. Hopefully today, it may not be. Have any of you used Try Hack Me? Let me ask you that question to start with.
No, sir.
No, sir. That was a no. Is there any yeses? All right. Try Hack Me is it's a free or paid product out there on the internet that teaches cybersecurity. And I've started using it a month ago. As a matter of fact, they wrote me yesterday and congratulated me on having used it for a month. I'm going to use it more the next few days, because actually for that Linux Plus test I told you I'm going to take next Tuesday, that they've got 3 training modules about Linux in there. Now, I used Unix extensively back in the early 90s, but I've used occasionally and taught occasionally on it, but nothing extensive since, so that's why I got to get a good review on it, but I know basic stuff on it now. Whether I know the stuff to the level they're going to test on that test, I don't know, but come March, I think it is, they got to train the trainer for me to attend that'll teach me about it. But I got a chance to do the beta test for their new version of it. Yes, Cassandra, that's it for you, Mason, the name of it. I'll come back to it in just a second. But it's been real good. I had a former student recommend it to me that is headed into advanced cyber training, is actually looking to go into a master's degree program starting next fall, and it's telling me about how well it was. It's basic on some of the stuff, but it goes to a really advanced on it. So far, I've only played with basic stuff on it, which fits with your class, actually. It's got some basic networking stuff on it that's written on a definitely a lower level than this class on some of it. So far, I've only caught one real error in their material. They've got the wrong number of IP version 6 addresses. But beyond that, everything I've been reading and doing in it has been interesting. It's in a game type format to it. They've apparently got almost 900,000 users in it. It's based in Ireland. They've got a number of free courses out there, and I'm going to give y'all probably 2 courses, 1 course to fully do, and one that you'll do the free parts of it, and that it's got several free parts, and then it's got a couple of paid parts. They charge students $8 a month for the paid, or the free is out there for regular people. They charge $10 a month. I talked to them about getting an education offer or whatever. That wasn't going to work. They had more programs to be able for me to be able to manage it, and keep up with everybody on it, but it would cost $25 a month per student. And I went, no, that's not going to work. I'm just going to use the free and have y'all use free. So when you go on there and ask you about paying for it, do the free when I send this to you, okay? If by chance you've already used the program, which none of you said you have, and had done the things I'm going to have you do, you wouldn't have to redo those. That you could just go in and, like I'm going to have everybody else do print screens showing that it was done. Okay, so on that, because it puts green checks out there showing that the different lessons are done, or as they call them, rooms are done. What it does is it presents some material to you, and then it asks you a series of questions on it. And then it tells you if you got it right or not. And then you answer the question again if you got it wrong. And that, and then they'll check off when you finish everything in the room, they'll check it off. When you finish the course, they'll give you a certificate for it. The other one is if you log on for 7 days in a row, they'll give you a badge for having been logged on for 7 days in a row. However, I will warn you this one. It's based in Ireland, and they are running on their daily, when you do the stuff each day, is based on the clock, either in Ireland or somewhere in the British Isles. Okay, but I know the salesperson I talked to was in Belfast. And I'm pretty well determined it's about 5 hours off from us, but it doesn't use local time. So if you go in there 8 o'clock today, and then go in there 9 o'clock tomorrow night, that's not 2 days in a row. Okay, that's actually a first and third day. So I'll just advise you on that one. I've bumped into that one. I'm actually, in my rating on there, am up to 100. My number is just under 200,000. That I'm in the top 200,000 people of the almost 900,000 people. So I'm going to have y'all do a couple of things in there, and then y'all can play with it all you want beyond that, and do whatever else you want with it, and see the other things that show you more things in there. And that on the free version, when it has you actually doing things on machines, which isn't very much of in the stuff I'm going to give you, it limits you to 1 hour a day working on their virtual machines. However, you can work on another copy of the machine or look up the information somewhere else. Big thing is I want you to have another way to look at it. But I will be putting that in there later today. I'm not going to have a deadline on that one, but I would encourage you to at least look at the first thing or two in there, because it will relate right to this class and gives it to you on a simpler level. All right. Any questions on all of that? So I'm just going to be adding that. A couple other things. The permission form, it does have to be sent to me. I have to have the original with your original signature on it. Not the original, but I got to have the form with your original signature. So you're either going to have to bring it to the school, and you can bring it to any campus and ask them to, in our office, mail it to me, and they'll do that. Or you're going to have to mail it to me. And I gave you my mailing address on that. Now, that has no deadline on it either, other than it's got to be done by the end of the semester, but you really need to do it sooner. What that does is that gives me permission to put your grades out there at Cisco, which I've got to get them out there so Cisco has that you've completed the course when you finish it, and that you'll be able to get your certificate of attendance, and then of that, because y'all get a certificate on that. You'll also get a certificate for doing the packet tracer class when you finish it. Only requirements in that class is you've got to do the course feedback and you got to do the 2 quizzes. There's some assignments and stuff it gives you in there. You can ignore those. Main thing I'm wanting you out of there is to read through it and see it. Okay, but the permission form, as soon as I get it, and y'all haven't even had an assignment to turn in yet, so there's no assignment grades for me to transfer to Cisco at this point anyway. But when I get it, I will mark it, and then I'll know I can transfer those grades. At the end of the semester, me having both grade books, and sometimes I will be slow on transferring grades, because likewise I have to transfer the test grades from Cisco to Blackboard, which I can do without your permission because that's school controlled and that's limited access. We don't have control over who can actually access the stuff at Cisco. So that's why I have to get permission from you to put your grades out there at Cisco. Other than when you take the test, it automatically appears there, but you gave them permission to have your test score when you took the test. So as soon as y'all can get those to me, but it's not something you got to do today or have gotten done last week. If it takes you another week till you can get to a printer to print it, that's not a problem. Okay, but don't push it off too long. And when we get to about 3 or 4 weeks, I'm going to send out reminders telling people they need to do it. But and I have not checked my mail in a week either. So those of you that have mailed them, I haven't been over there to check my mail and get it and start putting those in, because I've had plenty more to do here. So that's the big parts on that. Any questions on all of that? I think that's all of the housekeeping in here. Now, most of that we won't do most weeks. That we'll jump right into the material. But there is a lot of material through here. But let's say chapter 1, I'm going to skip over for right now and do a separate recording for y'all so that I can go ahead and do for what's probably more useful to y'all today. Is to show you a packet tracer demonstration so that y'all can see how it works, and besides those other ways I told you on it. Let me start packet tracer. And I believe I'm on 8.1. I know I'm at least on version 8. And I'm pretty sure I'm up to 8.1, which is the version you're getting. Let me look at help and see to make sure. Okay, I'm 8.01, and that may be the latest, or may not, but it's going to be what we're looking at. It's going to look the same on your version, because it's not much difference that they did going to. I think it was 8.1, but it may be 8.01. So I may have to upgrade. When I go to grade y'all's assignments as they come in, I'll discover immediately, because it won't look forward compatibility. So when I try to open a packet tracer file that was created in a newer version, I have to upgrade to that version. That's usually when I find out there's a new version out there, because they don't always. And when I go to open a student's assignment and suddenly it throws me that error, I know, whoa, they have just upgraded packet tracer and this student already grabbed it without me even knowing it's out there. So now let me share the screen. And this is going to take a few different shares in it as we go, because it does pop-up screens on some stuff we're going to do. And when it goes to do the pop-up screen, I'll have to stop the screen share and then share again the other screen. Now, to confuse myself completely, I'll be looking at the copy you're looking at on the screen in packet tracer, along with the real one that I'm really working on. So part of the time I'll do, just like I'm right now, and you can't tell it, go over there on that one and try to work on stuff, and it don't work when you're doing on the screen share one. So this is the screen you will come up to. Mason, I should be in the office all day today. Monday through Thursday, normally I will be in the office all day, except I do get called out, and I do have some other things pop up sometimes. And then I take a lunch at some point during the day, which can vary. And then, like I said, sometimes I've got something else pops up in there. So that sounds like, from what Nikki just said, I'm not on the latest version, so I'm going to have to get that upgraded. I'm going to have to download it and upgrade it again to get to the latest one. But it's going to be, everything I'm going to be showing you is going to be the same on there. There is, but if I'm not here, just drop it off. If the office is open and you can get to my door, so if the other instructor is in here, the accounting instructor, just come back to my door. If the door is closed and I'm not here, and you can drop it in the mail slot that's on the door, the little basket thing, or you can drop it off at the front desk and they will get it to me. So you've got two views in here. You've got a logical view and you've got a physical view. We're going to mostly work in this logical view, which is this, what we're looking at right now, which is called a desktop. And that's the whole big white area, and it's actually a whole lot larger than what you're seeing there. So there's a whole bunch more. You got two scroll bars on there to see more. There is also a physical view, and it looks at the same things, but looks at it physically. And it comes from a very wide look at the whole thing and goes right on down narrowly. So if you notice, it starts off looking at it as looking in the city, and then it takes it on down to the blocks in this, into the office of that it shows you for the office building, and the office is sitting somewhere on this map. I thought it showed it to you where it was, but then you can go on into the corporate office, and there's the wiring closet, and there's where most of the stuff you would do physically, but you could put a PC in this room here and wire it back to where you put a switch or a router into this rack right here. They'll have you stick laptops and stuff on here to connect up here to configure the devices, and you'll actually see the devices just like they are there. So I'm going to stick a router up there right now on this rack. Why didn't it do it? It did it, but I just didn't realize it did it. You got to go on into the rack to see everything in the rack. So there, you're actually looking at these devices, and now y'all can't see the piece I'm looking at, but when I double click on it, it gives me the device, which I'll show it to you in just a minute, and that you can see that on it. But we're going to work in the logical view. So the stuff we just did actually shows on there. I don't want those any longer, so I'm at least one of those. So I am going to come up here. There's an X on here somewhere to delete it. There it is. The X looks a little odd because it's in a back arrow thing. So then it asks me if I want to delete it, and I can get rid of the device I had added in there. Does everybody follow on that? And so I don't want a router right now, so I'm going to delete this one too. So I'll choose, and it popped up the little box. You can see that one, and it deletes. Now I'm back on a blank screen. Now, in this class, I am going to require you on all packet tracer exercises. Now, there's going to be a couple of them that lock the desktop in, so you won't be able to do this, but I'll know which ones those are. So if it's locked and says it can't do this, don't panic on that. You're okay. If you're going to have to put your name on the desktop, so you're going to use this button right here that I think that's supposed to look like a piece of paper, but with this black approach on it, I can't really tell. But if you hover over it, says place note. If you click it, then if you come down anywhere in the desktop, and you can do this at the beginning or the end, and you can move it around actually once you put it on there, and click, it's going to tell us a text box. And then you can type your name in. And then your name appears on the desktop. And so that is a requirement. When you turn in the packet tracer exercises, it will also maintain for you, I believe it's down here in the right side, because I didn't open a packet tracer activity that I had downloaded. But when you do that, which is what your assignments will generally be, I don't think in this course y'all actually build from scratch one. In the other two classes, there are a couple build from scratch. But they will have they will give you a file with some stuff already pre-built in it. So like this first assignment, it's already going to have the switch and the PC sitting in there for you. They will also have down here on the, I'm pretty sure it's down on the bottom right side in those, a score for you, showing you what your score is on that assignment. You want to get it to 100%, or Some of them are measured that way, and some of them are measured in terms of a number of a number. That there are 6 things they are counting, and so you want to get it to 6/6 to say you successfully did 6. The other part is when you're doing those, there will be a couple of extra buttons up here, and you can actually go in to a check results button that will be here. And when you click that check results button, the second tab in it will show you the things that you have done and the things you haven't done that they're measuring. However, it doesn't give you details on it. So, but it will tell you what it is, either that's not been done or is wrong. It could be either one of those with a red X, or it'll have a green check telling you that item's done. So you'll be able to look and see what is it that I haven't done or that I did wrong, to then go back in your directions, and they give you detailed directions in these activities, and it's part of the packet tracer activity file that you'll download, or you can download just the directions by themselves as a PDF file. Just pull down you're gonna have to pull down the packet tracer activity file anyway, and when you open it, it will open this for you with any pre-built things, along with your directions are open in a separate window. And then you'll just read the directions and do on it. So they'll lead you through on it. But when you do that, that'll help you on that to then go back, and then you can go back and look in your directions again and find what it is. If you have a problem and you can't solve it, then for that, contact me, send me an email. And the best bet probably is go ahead and send me the packet tracer file. It is a small file. It's a .pka file, and you can attach it to your email to me, and then I can look in and see exactly what you were doing. Ask me your question also, okay? But then I'll look at it and I can help you to tell you what you've done wrong or what you're needing to do to fix it, because I'm looking at literally what you have done, and that's what you're going to turn into me, is that packet tracer file. Now, if they have any questions in the directions, you got to put those in a Word document and also submit it. But I'll be glad to help y'all with the stuff on it along the way. And if you write and ask me a question, you'll have to send me a note on that one about that you can't download it. Send me a note about that, an email, and let me work specifically with you. Or if we get a chance, I'll flip back over and we flip through the curriculum real quick to make sure you're doing correct on there. But so in here, I'm going to go ahead and stick a switch in here. But if you look down here at the bottom on the left here, where I've got a little arrow floating, you've got a number of choices of different types of equipment you can choose to put in here. And it pops up a little pop-up in the middle that tells you type things. So there are WAN emulators, security devices, that would be your firewalls and that type stuff. There's wireless devices, the access points, etc., that you can set up in there. Your hubs, which you're really not going to use, that's out of date. But they are, if you find them out there, people using a hub, get them to replace it with a switch. Their network will run a whole lot faster. We'll find out about that in just a couple of chapters. And then here are the switches, which is what we're going to choose from, but I'm going to go on and show you a couple of things on here real quick. There's the routers, there's PCs, it calls them end devices, you got PCs, you got all of those different, some other type things you can choose from right there, like TVs and phones, other things that you would have as an end device on your network. Laptops, PC basically is a desktop, servers, etc. Components that we're probably not going to use. I don't think I've ever used that one. This one with the lightning bolt is actually our different type cables. So we'll come back to that in just a second, because you'll use it. Miscellaneous, just a few things they mixed together right there, which are actually things in other areas. Those are the most commonly used ones, essentially what that is. And then a multi-user connection sitting there. just do? Well, there we go. I can come back to this one to get to all of these. I'm not sure why I'm not showing my IoT devices right now on here, but they are in here somewhere. Because you've got all kinds of others you can choose. So I'm going to choose a switch, and then I'm going to choose one of these switches, and the 2960 is the one you're going to use most often. So I'll click it and then come up here and put it wherever I want to put it. Now, once you put them on here, you can move them around. So if you start putting stuff and realize, wait a minute, I don't have room around where I'm needing to put something else, you can remove them. So you can move them around. The other one is we need for this first assignment is a PC. So I'm going to come to the end devices. I'm going to choose a PC. And I'm going to put it in here. Now I've got a PC and a switch. Now I need to wire them together. So I'm going to come down here to the cabling. And because we're going to be doing, now I'm going to go ahead and show you in the future how you're going to be able to cheat. But on this assignment, this won't work, what I'm going to show you, because they've locked the desktop. So I can click on the switch, which you can actually do also. And it's going to throw us a pop-up at this point. So I am going to have to change my sharing to show you that pop-up, because it doesn't show you that pop-up actually, because it sees that as a different screen. So I got to stop the sharing. And I'm going to start sharing again to get that pop-up. And I'm going to share it. And there we go. So if you see there, you see the actual physical layout of the back of the switch. You see all of the ports in that switch where you can plug in the wires from PCs back to the switch, which is what you do. And it's got, and those are 100 megabit speed ports on this switch, and then it's actually got 2 gigabit port switches on here, so you've got some faster sitting there too. They do have better switches down there also. This is one they just used in the classes for years. There's also a console port down here, which is what we're going to use in this assignment. But you see it's got a physical view. Well, you'll be able to do that part when you go in, but you won't be able to when you click on the CLI, command line interface. Whoops, I'm in the wrong one. And you click on that, and hopefully y'all saw what I was talking about a moment ago, because I'm covering over the wrong one. That in this case, it takes you in and gets you into configuration stuff on it. Notice what it looks like right now. You're going to see it again in a minute. But when y'all do it on this first assignment, it's going to tell you that it's locked and it won't let you in here. Okay, so that's where we'll go do that. Even though we're doing configurations, we're not using this config piece of it right here in here. Now on the PC, when we have to do some configurations, we will, but we're not going to work with that one. So let me close this, and now let me do the share again to go back to the screen where I want it. And we'll put you back on that screen as soon as it gets there. So now what I'm going to do is, you've got a bunch of different type cables you can use down here. This second one is the console port. Actually, when we get to about chapter 6, we're going to go through the details on it, and y'all are going to learn how to make the plugs on these cables. So at this point, you really don't need to worry on that about straight through, rollover, and crossover cables. But what we're going to use is actually a rollover cable here, which is also called a console cable, which is what they call it. So we're going to choose that. And then we'll come up here, and now it's got, notice it's got a little plug on it on the end of there. I know it's a little hard to see, but it looks like a little telephone plug or the RJ45 plug, which is what it's really supposed to be looking like. And I can start from either end. I can plug it first into the PC, or I can plug it into the switch, and it's going to know which end I'm trying to plug in there. So if I go to the PC and get over it, first off is it will give you a pop-up that y'all can't see that tells us about what's the different things on it. But if I click on it, it gives me what my different plugs are on that PC. Now, I can't plug this thing into all of these because actually what I'm plugging in at this point is not RJ45 plug, but it's actually a serial plug because we're going into the serial on the PC and going into the console port on the switch. So if we try to plug it into the USB, and it's not giving you those choices showing on your screen. Oh, great. So it gives me a list of RS-232, USB 0, and USB 1, and fast Ethernet, which is our gigabit one. So it's got two USBs, and it's got my regular network plug, which is called fast Ethernet. So I'm going to choose RS-232, and I realize y'all can't see that, but sorry about that. At that point then, when I move, notice I've got a cable attached to the PC. If I go to the switch, it's going to do, and click on it, it's going to give me a whole long list here also. And I don't know any way to show y'all that easily, that I'm going to choose from. I wished it would show to you. That the first one on the list is a console port, which remember we saw, and then it's got 24 fast Ethernet ports listed, which you saw on the back of the switch a moment ago, that there were 24 plug spots, and 2 gigabit ones, which we also mentioned. So I'm going to choose the console, and at this point it connects across. Actually, if y'all want to know about what the different type cables are and you're really wanting to jump on into that, if you jump on over to one of the later chapters, and they're actually going to, we're going to go through and I'm going to show you how to do the plugs, and probably you're going to have to come in and do them. That they will show you those somewhere about chapter 6. So now we've got a connection through there. Okay, is everybody with me so far? And I keep seeing some things pop up that I'm not seeing down here in the chat. Are y'all putting them in the chat window or what? Or y'all sending specific? Because I'm not seeing things that I saw popping up across there. But the chat window is when you use the little double arrow down at the bottom. That's purple, and it pops in the chat box for you where you can type things in there, and then for me to see on it. And I don't know why I'm not seeing some of the things y'all just had popping by. Because I saw something about that they need to update it on it. But they have been, and this has come a long, long way. So now if I click on the PC, let's see if this does not open in there. So I'm going to have to go to change the share again so that y'all can see what we're doing right here. And this will look again. Should be there in a second. So we've got this. So now in the PC, notice it didn't have CLI here, but we're going to go to the desktop. Whoops, wrong place. I'm going to go to the desktop, and later on you're going to use a couple of these, but not most of these. You notice it's got all kinds of capabilities sitting out here of things you can do with it that you would do on a PC. So it's not a friendly desktop for you, but think about it as just a real ancient Windows 1.0 desktop. So then we will go to terminal, and it goes into its terminal emulation program connecting to the switch. This looks just like if you were using like PutyTail or something else on a real PC into a real switch. It gives you this first screen about the configuration. Normally, you don't ever change anything on those. You just click OK. And then we're into the switch. So we're going from the PC to the switch into its configuration. That's all we're doing across on this connection. Notice the stuff you're looking at right here looks like what we saw when we clicked straight into the switch, except it's got a black background with white print instead of it being a white background with like blue print, I think it was. But it's basically, it's the same things in terms of messages, etc., sitting up there. So you're seeing the same thing that you'll be able to see going straight switch in future assignments. It says press return to get started, so I will press the enter or return key. And it takes me to a prompt that says switch greater than sign. But putty tail is what's used a lot of times for it. Putty's used a lot of times for it. There's some others out there too that do terminal emulation. There was one I used to use that I don't even remember the name of it, that I used back in the 90s when I was teaching Cisco classes. And when I first got here in, no, not in the 90s, the early 2000s. And then when I got here, but then we went to putty here. So we're using putty to go in here at the school. But it works the same as this, basically. So it's going to give us a prompt where we're going to be able to type in our commands. The chapter is going to tell you exactly what commands to type in. Don't worry about where they get some of the information. So when they tell you to type in the IP address for the device, don't worry about what the IP address is. You don't need to know what the meanings of that whole number or anything else. Just accept it as given that that's the IP address. When we get to about chapter 6 or 7, maybe 8, somewhere in there near mid-quarter, that we're going to go through details about how to do IP addressing. I'm going to teach you number systems first, and I'm going to do it a little differently than the book does. And then I'm going to go through and teach you about the IP addresses in IP version 6 and version 4, predominantly 4, because that's where you do more of your addressing on. IP version 6 is used more connecting out there between the networks, but within the networks it's still predominantly IP version 4. Then you just have one address going out, but you could be using 6 too. So we're going to cover 6 also. I'm going to teach you about how to do subnetting in IPv4, and that gets real detailed on that, and those will be some long sessions that will run over an hour easily, which is where we're headed for right now. And if any of you have to leave in an hour, don't worry about it. Just go ahead and exit out. I know on that, I've told you I'm going to try to keep them to an hour, but I've also told you in this class, it's going to be hard at times to always keep to an hour. And then I'm recording it so you can come back later and go and watch the recording and pick up from where you walked out at. So no problem with that, and you'll get credit for the class for having sat through at this point. I'm going to be teaching you how to do that type stuff to it. Okay, so here it says switch, and it has greater than sign. Those of you that have gone to command prompt in Windows or used Linux with its command prompt, not very many people use the GUI in Linux, or have gone to, I've done some stuff back to DOS even, this should look familiar on you. Except for that instead of telling you the drive that it's sitting defaulting to, this tells you what device you're on. So we're on a switch, and by default, they call it switch. I'm going to show you in just a second how to change the name of that switch, which is one of the things you'll do in your assignment. So it makes a good example on that. Now, once you come in, it's got a greater than sign now, which is what you're used to seeing from a Windows or DOS viewpoint. But that will change. There's 2 different levels you can go into the switches and routers. They're both I just went blank for a second. One of them is privilege mode, which we're going to go on into in just a second. And the basic mode, just paused for a moment on myself on that. is just the user exec mode. So you got a privileged exec mode and a user exec mode. We are in user exec mode at this point. Basically, the only thing we can do is look around and see things, but we can't change anything. And we can't even do some seeing of things. This would be where you might give your operator the rights to be able to get into there to see things when something's happening. So then when they call you at home at 1 in the morning as the network administrator, that you can tell them to go in and look at things, and they can tell you what they're seeing, and then you can figure out what's going on and then figure out what to do about it. So people could get to that level. This can be secured at this level also, so that they have to log on before they get there. We have no security sitting on the switch at this point, and won't until we get much further back. I think in this book we may do a little, but I know we definitely do it in the next 2 courses for those of you that are actually going to do the entire Cisco curriculum. Most of you I know are only doing this one class, because that's all you have to have for in computer support. Is the one class, and if you're doing Windows networking, you only have to have this one class as far as Cisco. If you're in cybersecurity, you're going to do all 3 classes, and if you're in the Cisco track, you're obviously going to do all 3 classes also. So from here, we could do some things. So I could do a show run right here, and you don't need to remember these commands on it. I'm just showing you a couple of things. You'll learn them later on, and you'll do them multiple times, and you'll get to where you know what they are. So I'll do a show run, and I guess I can't do it on that level. I thought I could. Some stuff you can do on show, and I thought I could that one. I guess show version will work. Let's just do that one. But we're limited on the different things we can do. So show run won't work on this level. But show version would. Oops, if I type correctly. And it comes back and it tells me the version of the software we're using on this switch. Not much you'll do at this level. You're really doing stuff at the next level. To get to the privileged mode, which is where you're going to do all your stuff, you'll do ENA, or actually you're doing enable. Any of the commands you go to put in, usually you can just put in the first 3 letters of them. Sometimes you got to go to more. Sometimes you can actually get away with just 1 letter, which I'll show you one in just a second. So I have to do enable. Notice now it still says switch, but the greater than sign changed to a number sign. That tells us we're in privileged mode. We're not down there in user mode. So that prompt symbol tells you some stuff. Now from here, I can do show run. If I do show run here, notice it comes back, and now it gives me what the current configuration is of this device. Notice right there in the middle of the page, it says host name switch. That's the name of the device. It's called switch, which was its default name. This is all the default settings. Now, you see more at the bottom. If you hit the enter key, you will only go 1 line at a time, which will take you forever. But you may want to do that. If you hit the space bar, it will go a screen at a time. So just as a shortcut for you there. It takes you on through all that, and we don't have any addresses set on any of the interfaces or anything. We don't even have a cable run across to an interface at this point, although they will have had you do that already at this point. So now I'm back to the prompt. Now I want to change the name of this device, and that's all I'm going to show you in here, because that gives you 1 command for you to have seen to see how it works, and it's a simple one, and that y'all will understand it. And I'm not having to tell you just accept information on it, but when you do your assignment, you will. So now to change it, I've got to go in configuration mode. To do that, I'm going to type config. Actually, I think you can get away with CONF, but I always type in CONFIG. And then you're actually configuring the terminal. So you would do config terminal, but you only have to do T. You don't have to spell it out. So sometimes I forget what T even stands for right there. So it's config terminal is what I've effectively put in, but I just had to type in config T. I hit enter, and now it's ready for me to start configuring. Notice the prompt changed again. Now it shows a parentheses config there also. So I know by the number sign I'm in privileged mode. I know by the config in parentheses that I'm in configuration mode within privileged level. Okay. Now to change the name of this device, remember we saw up there in the configuration file, it said host name and switch. Well, the command is host name, but I can abbreviate it. You may be able to get away with HOS, I'm not sure. As soon as you get to where it's a unique name, you don't have to put more. I always put host, and everything I've seen written always uses host instead of host name. But you could put host name if you want, and then you'll put what name you want to call this device. We're going to call it, for this purpose right here, I'm going to call it the name of our class, CIST 2451. Now, it has to be a single word. So I couldn't put a space between CIST and 2451. If you watch my lecture from yesterday for this class, you'll see I used Watt, I think it was for it. So they'll tell you in the book what to call it. And then I hit enter. Notice my prompt changed. It now says CIST 2451 instead of switch, because the name of our switch is 2451. I could put in more configuration commands, but we're not going to do that in here because we're out of time, and I'm not finished yet. But if you got to leave, leave. And don't worry about that. You will get your credit. I think I've got everybody marked down. Let me look real quick because I notice it says 10. And let me see if I think I've got everybody down here because I don't want to miss anybody. On here, there, Mickey, Samuel. Aha, I am missing one, so it's a good thing I did check. However, I will tell you this also, if I fail to give you a grade for collaborate session that you notice a week or so later that I didn't give you the grade for it the previous week and you had attended, if you will just notify me, I can go back into the recording in Blackboard and it will actually give me this list of who all was in there. So I can verify that you were actually in there and we'll get your grade for you anyway. Okay. So now I'm going to exit configuration mode. I'll do a Control Z and it takes me down a level and it tells me right here that I'm now back down to the number sign config went away, but it also gives me a message and tells me that a configuration actually occurred right then because it actually did the configuration. So it gets the message across here. If I start typing right here, it's just like as if I was typing right by the number sign. That's no problem. And a lot of people do it that way. Me, I like it cleaner usually. If you just hit the enter key, it will give you back the prompt again. You can hit that as many times as you want. It just goes back to the prompt every time. So you can have a clean line to start typing from, or you can just start typing right up there because effectively, if you were typing right there, you were my throat's getting dry. I've talked too long. You are effectively typing up here. So now, if I want to see again that it has changed in the configuration, I can do show run. And this is the running configuration. There's actually two configuration files out there. There's one that's stored actually in the flash memory on the device, or there's the one that we're currently running. Think about that just like when you're working on a Word document. When you're typing stuff into the Word document, it doesn't change what's on the disk until you do the save. This is the same way. It changes it in the running version, but it doesn't change it in the saved version until we save it. And we'll do that in just a second. If you wipe out the power on Word or close Word without saving it, you lose it, except for now Word has an auto save piece there that will keep it in an extra little file. But assume that's not there. And here, if we shut this device down at this point, we'll lose that change we just made. Okay, so if I do show run, it's showing the running configuration. And now if you look down there, up there on host name, it now shows the new name. But if we were to do show startup or show start, which is the one that's saved out there on the actual flash memory, because they got flash memory. They don't have disk drives in these switches and routers. They got flash memory in there for it. And I do. That's odd. It should have been there. I guess it's not. No, it's not there because we didn't ever save one as that. So it goes back. We just got the default one. Okay. So you see how the show works there. Now to save it, you'll use the copy command. And you're going to do copy run, which stands for running config. And then you're going to tell it what file are we saving it to. And we're going to save it to the startup one. So I'm going to put start here. And so that's just copying from run to start. So we're going to replace what was in the startup one. And it confirms about what file do we want to save it in, which is startup-config. And I'll hit enter always on that. That's just a confirmation there. And it says it did it. Now, if I do show start, that file is definitely going to exist. So notice it definitely exists now. If I went back in and did a change again, it wouldn't change it in this one, just changes it in run. So I've done all of that at that point. Now, the last thing you need to do, so this gets us all through here. So then I want to show you real quick how you actually really save your packet tracer file, because we haven't saved the actual packet tracer file. We've just saved it in the packet tracer file. And those of you that have taken virtual machine classes understand on that one. So I am going to close this. Well, it really doesn't make any difference how I close it or not. And then I'm going to do a screen share again to go back to my main screen. And should be there in just a second. And we're back to here. Now to save it, and this is one thing I wanted to make sure I go over, because there's a couple of options here and I don't want you to do it wrong, is go to File, just like you would normally go any other program to save. So it is a Windows-based program, so it works fine on that. And then down here on Save, it doesn't give me that screen. I thought it would give me that screen up here for y'all to be able to, oh, there. No. I thought it would give it to me. I'm going to have to, I guess, do a screen print of this to show you later. But I'm going to tell you what the options are. I wished it would give me some of these pop things here. There's going to have a save option, which saves it as the same name as it was. That's what you're going to normally do that. But it also gives you a save as, just like you do in other things. And you can change the name of the file, but don't change the extension. And the ones you download from in there in Netacad are going to be .pka files. You want it to be .pka. It's also going to give you a save as PKZ. Please don't save it as that. That is a zipped packet tracer file. And if you turn that into me, you have just given me aggravated extra work. And Blackboard might not even let you turn it in. And then save as common cartridge, and we're not going to do that. So I would do save here. I've now it pops up the box for that, oddly. I don't know why, but it did. So it will let us see that one. And I would be able to see. But if you look down here, this one's actually a PKT file. The ones you're going to be working with are PKA, because they're activities that have been built either by Cisco, or I could actually build them myself also, because I know how to build them. And that's where it's got the directions with the file that they're giving you. So it's got directions with it and also has a scoring mechanism in it. The PKT is just a plain packet tracer file of stuff that's been built in there, but has no directions or scoring or any of that type of stuff with it. So y'all are going to be working with PKA ones. But if you notice right here, if I do a drop down, that's the only choices. So I'm going to not save it. Now, the other piece, does anybody want me to show you real quick in Netacad about how to pull down the file? There was somebody said they had a problem with that earlier. So I'm going to stop the share. And I'm going to close Packet Tracer. But when you turn the stuff in, you will be able to attach the PKA file to what you turn in. Okay. And then if there were questions in there for you to answer, have typed those up into a Word document and attach that also. And you can attach several things to one submittal in the Dropbox and Blackboard. Now, the other part is you can do more than one submittal. So if you did the assignment last night before we did this going over it today, and now you're going, wait a minute, I know I goofed up. No problem. We haven't gotten to the deadline when it's due yet, which is actually next Monday night at 11:59. You can go in, do another submission with your correct version on it. When I grade, what goes in the grade book will be the higher grade of the two, or 3, or 4, because I've actually set it for unlimited submissions. Now, if I have already graded it, the only times you are allowed to do an additional submission is when I've told you something is wrong on it that I want you to fix. It's not often on those. Although on this first assignment, if you forget to put your name on this first assignment, I'm going to return it to you and tell you that you need your name on the desktop and to fix and resubmit. And that's the words I will have there if you can redo it. Your grade will also be a 0 normally on that. So if you see your grade 0 in the grade book, go to it and read my notes. I probably told you something that you need to straighten out before I'm going to grade it. And I need those back within 2 weeks of when I return it to you. I will normally try to grade stuff the day after it's been submitted or the following day. Discussions I actually need to grade first because that's a priority of the school. So usually those get graded on Tuesday, and a lot of times assignments don't get graded on till Wednesday or Thursday. But I do try to keep up on those and keep those graded. I've got some assignments in some other classes to grade today. So you've got those on there. If you don't put your name on the desktop after this first assignment, it's going to cost you 30 points. I'm going to go with your grade normally. It's going to be basically coming off of what it says down there where I told you it shows your grade in Packet Tracer. That's going to be where I'm going to work from. Now, if you had questions to be answered and you didn't answer them, you lose some points for that. If you don't put your name on the desktop, you will lose 30 points. So make sure that name's always on the desktop. And the other part is when you turn them in, make sure they're all up to 100. If you can't get it to 100, don't work 4 days and then write me and tell me on Monday afternoon, I've been fighting it for 4 days and I can't figure out what in the world I'm doing wrong. Write me on that first day. If you've been working on it 30 minutes or more is my rule, and you can't figure it out, write and ask me a question. All you got to do is put your name, and when I say your name, in your case, you could put Nikki there, or you could put Mills there, or you could put Nikki Mills. I just want something that's your name so I know it's your copy. Okay? You're turning it into the Dropbox in 2451, so I know it belongs in 2451. You can put that there too. Y'all can put more if you want, but I just got to have, and even the couple of you that have the same first name or the couple of you that have the same last name, that's no problem. I know whose it is when I'm looking at it, but I want to know this was your work. So if there were 2 Watts in the class, and I put Watt on there like I did on mine just then, that's fine. I know who that is. Okay, so first or last name is all you got to put there. If you like putting your full name, that's fine too. Just make sure you do have at least one of the 2. And you can put some other notes out there if you want also. So that's that on that. Let me go in here. I'm going in. I'm going to see if this will let me share from this point. Hopefully it will. I'm going to try sharing the Netacad from right now where I'm going into it. Oh, I gotta go into Chrome. I forgot what it was I was going into right here. So they got several options on me as I share. So let me smooth this screen over. Ooh, I got to move that screen to a different spot so I can see. Okay, so now y'all can see my desktop. You see, I go into I'm teaching, you go into I'm learning, but notice it looks the same except I got more classes sitting here. So we're going to go into the 2451 class. Now, the only thing you got to put on that desktop is just put first or last name. And on the file name, don't change it. Just leave the file name as is. Although if you want to change it, you can. But you don't need to change the file name. So now I'm in the course. I'm going to go to the course content and how they've got 2601, the other class I'm teaching set up, and this one set up, which are supposed to have been set up the same here, where they're using Canvas, is different. So I got to go into course content. Well, wait a minute. I got to go into Introduction to Networks course, which is inside course content. And then if I come here, when you get to here, if you're looking for the packet tracer file, why didn't it change screens for me? Let me see if it's going to do anything for me right here. It's not sharing. Oh, I changed screens again. Let me go back to the share again. So I got to stop the share again. And I'm going to share because it went to another screen. Oh, well. And it's another Chrome tab. And this one is Introduction to Networks. Yeah, that's the one I want. So now I'm into the curriculum. It should pop up in just a second. And it took me straight into course index. If it doesn't, if you end up actually in the material, you can actually choose, you can go up and choose on it. So I could do text and go into the material like you would normally come into here. If you do, just come up here to the top for a quick way to your packet tracer assignments and go to course index, which takes you to the screen I was just at. And if you uncheck all, that will take all the check marks off there, and go over and just check packet tracers. Then it just gives them to you. I did not assign the packet tracer assignment in chapter 1. So at 1.57, I did not assign. In chapter 2, I am assigning all three of them I'm assigning. Oddly enough, it also gives you videos down there when we chose packet tracers, which is a little weird, but it did. So I know you got all three of these assigned. So then I'll choose the one I'm wanting, and then it goes down. Now I'm at the packet tracer activity at this point. It's got 2 downloads right here for us. I wish they would label these better for you, because it ought to tell us that one of these is a PKA file and one of them is the Adobe file. The Adobe Acrobat file is actually included in this other one. So you want to use the second one that's got the download little icon on it. And I have told them they need to label these better, because when you've got the same words on them both, you don't know which is which. But the second one actually will download the PKA file. The first one will just download the Acrobat file, which you don't need. It's built into the second one. So if I click on this one, it's going to download it depending on which browser you're using and how you've got your browser set. It may pop up and ask you where you're going to save it to, the browser here, Chrome, as I'm using it, which version or whatever, and the way the school's got it set, it pops up, it lists it down on the bottom of the screen, which y'all can't see, and shows me that it's downloaded down there, and then it's a .pka file. And so then when I open it, it will open in Packet Tracer for me, and we'll have two windows it will open. One of them will be what we just looked at today. The other one will be your directions. And then you'll flip-flop back and forth between them. Any other questions for me? Did that help any on Mosham or whoever it was asked me the question? Okay, Nikki says it helped him. And Mason. Are there any other questions for me? Okay, and I don't know how Mosham yours is not popping up on my list over here. I see it pop in, but I don't see it. I'm wondering if you're typing in your comments somewhere different or something. Oh, I know. You're typing it straight to me, not to everyone. I'll bet that's what it is. So only I see it. Yeah, that's what it is. Now I see all of your comments. Okay. Yes, they have gotten tiny when I'm looking back and seeing, I see now the message, I saw something from you. They are small on there, I will agree with you, but they got so much stuff they're trying to put on that screen. So that's the way on it. And we have run the full amount of time like I did yesterday, an hour and 20 plus minutes. And that's why I didn't touch chapter 1, because I really, chapter 2 was more critical to you. But I'm going to try to, in an hour or so after I eat lunch, do a recording for you and talk about those terms you need to know out of chapter 1. And then you do have a test after chapter 3, if I'm remembering correctly, which I believe is this week also. No, it's next week. Between my two Cisco classes, one is the Cisco 1 class, and then I'm teaching a cybersecurity, cyber ops class that uses Cisco materials also, and I will mix those up occasionally. That's also the reason when you send me emails, if you send me the email using the send email link in Blackboard, it will automatically put on there which class you're writing me from. But if you send it from your email account, please put the number of the class. You don't have to put CIST. You can just tell me I'm in 2451, or you can just put 2451 in the subject line and then whatever subject you have for it. So I know which class you're in. I'm teaching 5 classes, and I've got almost 100 students between the 5 classes. So needless to say, at this point, I have no idea who's in what class. Well, truth be, I know who a couple of people are in a couple of classes, but some of y'all are in 2 classes of mine, and I don't know who's in what all classes at this point. So if you just write me a note and you don't tell me which class number, I'm sitting there going, what is that about? And it could apply to several classes, because some of the things 2601 is doing is things you're doing also. And then some things when we get further, there's things that we're going to do in this class that my 2413 class was actually doing this first week. So, and people get behind, and then people write me about stuff that's further back in the book that we've already covered. So that's why I need to know which class I'm answering a question about. So chapter 3 is not until next week, and that's when you have your test. And I've got them called chapters most of the time there in Blackboard, because that's what the book calls them. Online material calls it modules. Also, the test, I call them generally test in Blackboard, because that's what they used to call them, and that's what I like better. Where they call them exams out there in NetAcad, which is where you will take them. I prefer the final exam and midterm exam to be exams, and the others I prefer to be called tests, not exams, but they're basically synonymous terms. So if it says test, realize you're looking for exam in NetAcad. I hope that helps all of y'all and makes it a little bit clearer. But yes, I will agree, Mosham, on it would be nice if they had bigger icons and the print was a little bit bigger. You can actually change that slightly of changing how big stuff is, but it's not real simple. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to go back to where I see everyone again and see any other comments. Actually, you're going to use terminal when you go in there doing this assignment. So you're going to, when you go to type in the stuff to configure the switches, you're using terminal. I said where it's got config there in the desktop, you're not going to use, well, you may use that, correction, and I just told you wrong. You are going to use that when they have you setting up the settings that goes on the PC. You're going to use that config icon for that. And that will get you into the configuration for the PC. And when you get in there, if any of y'all have ever put addressing in or gone in and looked at addressing on your PCs, it's going to look very similar. Again, realize while they're showing it to you it's ancient. Because their concern more is how stuff looks and getting all the commands ultimately developed on the devices, the Cisco devices on there. They're not real worried about the PC. So they're leaving the PC very plain on how it does on it. Likewise, when you go in, and I think we actually do use it at some point, that you're going to use the web browser possibly at some point in this class or maybe in the other one. You're going to discover it is an old version of a web browser they bring up that it's going to look like, I think actually looks like back to Netscape, for sure back to IE. Okay, so it's not a very fancy web browser, but that's all we need in there just so you can see how you can test things and actually create a web page on a web server sitting in Packet Tracer that then you can sit there on a PC and Packet Tracer and look at that web page. And then you can, here's the other part with Packet Tracer. Y'all can build all these configurations and everything in there. You can copy and paste those configs out of there, get on a real router or switch and paste them into, when you're going in through terminal emulation, and paste them into that browser or router, and you've already debugged it in Packet Tracer. So very unlikely that it will give you any problems at that point. So that's another nice thing Packet Tracer can be used for in the real world, is for that. GNS3, some of you that are more network people that are coming in here, because I know some of you know nothing, and some of you already have done some networking. GNS3 is a real good virtual networking one. It's not doing simulations. It's actually working off of virtual devices for it. So it's not a simulation. But the problem is Cisco licenses all of their operating systems, their iOSs, which we do have licenses for, and I could get to y'all, but I'd have to pull them all down and then distribute those out, and we could work from within there. But that gets much more complicated, and I've got enough complications already to keep me busy. So, but a class I just took on Network Plus from CompTIA, the guy teaching it to us showed us both GNS3, which he loved, and he also showed us a few things in Packet Tracer, because he said he knew a number of you used that, and that he really liked both, but GNS3 takes it a step further, which is actually freeware out on the internet. So if you did want to play with it, you can. It just does not have Cisco devices in it. It's got other companies that their iOSs are open, or that they were able to license for free, but Cisco does not, which means, and I actually own some Cisco stock from back in 1996 that I bought before I knew what Cisco was, other than it was something with the internet. And Cisco makes lots of money every year, and probably at this point in time, somewhere 50 to 60% of all routers and somewhere near that on switches are all made by Cisco. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, Cisco actually had over 75% of the market. But still, most of them that are the high-end routers and switches are Cisco devices still today. And they are making money just like you see some others. but they don't have a single owner that's made big money like Bill Gates or stuff. They do have a chairman, and they just changed chairs. And Chambers, that was from West Virginia, that was it for years, just retired 2 years ago, I think it was. And I can't tell you the name of the new one. If y'all make at least a 70 on your final exam, you'll get a letter from him congratulating you on the course, besides getting your certificate for the class. Well, I'm going to let y'all go because I've kept you way too long today. Next week, hopefully, we'll be down more close to an hour. But there's a lot of stuff in this class, and I hope these are helpful. If you got better suggestions for me, realize part of what we did today on just how the classes run, we won't do that again next week unless y'all have a specific question. And then I see some of y'all in other classes. And I probably saw a couple of y'all yesterday, I'm not sure. But I hope these are helpful. And I hope the recordings are helpful for those that aren't able to attend the live sessions, although they have to do the discussion if they just watch the recording. And the recording may be good for y'all that just watched it live. Because if you get to Saturday night and you're going, wait a minute, I wish I remember how Dr. Watt showed us to do that in Packet Tracer, you can go back and look and see. And that's what I've had students tell me, because when I first started putting the recordings out there, I was really intending them for people that missed lectures. And I had students that sat live in class and told me, oh, they're really useful for me because I'll remember, I wished I remember what Dr. Watt said, and they'll remember when it was about in the lecture, but now you can actually listen to me again. I don't think you're going to want to just go back and listen to me just to listen to me. So I'm going to stop the recording.